The moment everyone in the room fell silent was the moment she realized the truth she had tried to ignore for years. Money could buy the best doctors, the most advanced therapy, and the most luxurious life, but it could not buy hope. She sat in her wheelchair on the wide balcony of her father's mansion, staring at the mountains beyond glass railings. Her name was Emily Carter, the only daughter of one of the most powerful CEOs in the city. Her father owned companies, buildings, and influence that stretched across the country. But the one thing he couldn't fix was his daughter's broken spine. If you believe the world still needs kindness, second chances, and people who refuse to give up on others, take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this one. Emily's life had changed in a single second 3 years earlier. A terrible car accident had left her paralyzed from the waist down. Doctors had tried everything. The most expensive treatments. The best surgeons from different countries. Endless physical therapy sessions. Nothing worked. At first, everyone promised recovery. Doctors spoke carefully. Therapists smiled politely. Her father assured her that money would find a solution. But eventually the optimism faded. The hospital visits became routine. The therapy sessions turned into quiet exercises with little progress. The hopeful words disappeared, replaced by careful silence. And the hardest part wasn't the wheelchair. It was the loneliness. Emily had grown up surrounded by people, assistants, bodyguards, staff members. But after the accident, even the people around her began treating her differently. Friends stopped visiting as often. Business associates whispered in hallways. Some even pitted her openly. Her father loved her deeply, but he was always working, always chasing another deal, another company, another meeting. The mansion felt enormous and empty at the same time. Every evening, Emily would roll her wheelchair onto the balcony, watching the sun sink behind the hills. It became her routine, her quiet moment of escape. That was where she first saw him, Daniel Harper. He lived in the small guest house on the property, newly hired as the maintenance manager. Unlike the polished executives who visited the mansion, Daniel looked simple. He wore worn work boots and carried tools instead of briefcases. But what stood out most wasn't his appearance. It was the way he laughed. One afternoon, Emily noticed him playing with a little girl near the garden fountain. The girl couldn't have been older than 6. She ran in circles while Daniel chased her, pretending to be slow so she could win. Emily watched from above. For the first time in months, she felt something unfamiliar. Curiosity. Later she learned the girl was Daniel's daughter, Lily. He was a single father who had moved to the city after his wife passed away. The mansion job was the only work stable enough to support them. Days passed, and Emily began noticing Daniel more often. He always greeted the staff kindly. He fixed broken lights without being asked. And every afternoon, he spent time with Lily in the garden. One evening, while Emily sat on the balcony as usual, Daniel noticed her watching. Instead of awkwardly looking away like others did, he simply smiled and waved. It was such a small gesture, but it felt strangely warm. A few days later, Emily rolled her wheelchair toward the garden path for the first time in weeks. The air smelled of fresh grass and spring flowers. Daniel was repairing a wooden bench nearby while Lily played with a small toy airplane. When Daniel looked up and saw Emily approaching, he didn't stare at the wheelchair. He didn't show pity. He just smiled. For a moment, Emily felt nervous. People usually didn't know what to say to her. But Daniel spoke first. He said something simple that no doctor, therapist, or wealthy visitor had ever told her before. He said he believed people could heal in ways doctors didn't always understand. And then he said the words that would slowly change everything. "Let me help you." At first, Emily thought he meant fixing the wheelchair or helping her move around the garden. But Daniel meant something very different. The next morning, he brought a simple wooden balance frame he had built himself. It wasn't advanced medical equipment. It was just a sturdy support rail designed for practice standing. Emily almost laughed when she saw it. She had already trained with professional therapy machines worth thousands of dollars. What difference could a handmade wooden frame make? But Daniel wasn't focused on the equipment. He was focused on belief. Every morning, he helped Emily practice standing, even if it lasted only a few seconds. Some days her legs trembled so badly she could barely hold herself upright. Other days she fell back into the wheelchair exhausted. But Daniel never showed disappointment, and Lily became Emily's biggest cheerleader. The little girl would clap excitedly every time Emily stood, even if it was only for a moment. Weeks turned into months. Tiny improvements appeared. First, Emily could balance for 5 seconds. Then 10. Then she could slightly shift her weight without falling. Doctors were surprised. Her physical therapist couldn't explain the sudden progress. But Daniel knew something important that others had forgotten. Recovery isn't only physical. It's emotional. It's believing that effort matters even when results are slow. One morning, nearly a year after they first met in the garden, Emily attempted something she hadn't dared to try before. Walking, her father stood nearby, watching with nervous eyes. Staff members quietly gathered in the distance. Daniel stood beside her, steady and calm. Emily gripped the rail, lifted herself slowly, and took a breath that felt heavier than any moment in her life. Her first step was shaky. Her second step was stronger. And then something incredible happened. She took a third. Tears filled her father's eyes. Emily's own vision blurred as the world seemed to shift beneath her feet. She wasn't running. She wasn't fully healed. But she was moving. And in that moment, she realized something even greater than walking had returned. Hope. If this story touched your heart so far, take a moment to comment the word hope below. Your comment helps spread stories like this to people who might need encouragement today. Months later, Emily continued improving. With therapy and determination, she eventually walked short distances without support. It wasn't perfect, but it was more than anyone believed possible. Her father later funded a rehabilitation program inspired by Daniel's approach, focusing not only on medical treatment, but emotional support and human connection. And Daniel? He never asked for recognition. He just continued being a father to Lily and a friend to Emily. Because sometimes the greatest miracles don't come from advanced technology, wealth, or power. Sometimes they come from ordinary people who simply refuse to give up on someone else. And if this story moved you, please like the video, share it with someone who needs encouragement today, and subscribe for more powerful stories about kindness, hope, and second chances. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts around the world.